Welcome. I'm Melissa Smith, and I serve as the Assistant Curator of Manuscripts for LSU Library Special Collections. My colleague and Conservation Coordinator, Caroline Ziegler, and I would like to tell you a little bit about a noteworthy recent acquisition to the Louisiana and Lower Mississippi Valley collections, along with the conservation treatment it received so we can make it available to the public. Listed as manuscripts 5379 in our catalog, it's the 1st United States Infantry Regiment, a Louisiana Volunteer Corps d'Afrique Company 2 muster roll, which is a register of Louisiana's oldest African American Union regiment to participate in the Civil War. Before Caroline describes the conservation treatment, I'll start off with a little background on the history of the muster roll and those who served in the Corps d'Afrique. In April 1863, the U.S. War Department sent Brigadier General Daniel Ullman to New Orleans to raise a brigade of African American troops. Soon thereafter, Major General Nathaniel P. Banks, while in Opelousas, proposed the formation of what would eventually be called the Corps d'Afrique. Under the command of Colonel Alban B. Botsford, the regiment organized on September 4, 1863, at Port Hudson. This roll lists officers, servants, and payroll for June 30th through August 30th, 1863, along with documenting where, when, and by whom officers were mustered into service. For example, the muster roll identifies Edward Carter as captain, Spencer H. Stafford as colonel, and also the regiment's sergeants, corporals, musicians, a teamster, and privates. Rank and file soldiers are listed by their names, rank, time and location of enrollment, many of them committing to a service of 3 years, along with time and location mustered into service and payroll information. For example, we see Charles Baptiste and Teamster Anthony Coffey mustering in at New Orleans, Joshua Brown in St. Mary Parish, and Thomas Redwood at Fort Jackson. Most soldiers enrolled and were mustered in at New Orleans, but we see that others were coming in on board at Baton Rouge, St. Mary Parish, Bayou Ramos, Fort Jackson, Fort St. Leon, and Thompson Creek. The verso of the muster roll also contains lists of the deceased, discharged, those who deserted, and resigned soldiers. The unit mustered out of service January 6, 1866. What makes this roll so remarkable is that it offers enough information about someone from the Corps d'Afrique that it opens the door to research within census counts and city directories. For example, the aforementioned Charles Baptiste survived the war, returned home to New Orleans, and his wife Rosalie would spend his career as a laborer in the cotton industry and lived out the remainder of his life from his home on Dumaine Street in the Treme neighborhood. He died in his late 70s in 1924 and is buried at Chalmette National Cemetery. The muster roll was in pretty rough shape when we received it in late 2019, and before we can make it available to the public, Caroline applied some of her conservation magic to it. Caroline will now describe the condition of the roll once it was transferred to her and the techniques she applied. Caroline?
Hi, my name is Caroline Ziegler, and I'm the Conservation Coordinator at Hill Memorial Library here at LSU. When I first received the muster roll, it was folded, and there were some segments that were torn and segments that were completely detached. There was a wide, nearly opaque tape covering almost all of the folds on the back side as well. The other thing I noticed was that there was some handwritten notes over the top of the tape. One of the notes in red had the date 1871, so that tape had likely been there for quite some time. I consulted with Melissa Smith, and we decided to remove the tape, except where there were notes that had been written on top of the tape. So to make repairs, I first had to remove as much of the tape as possible so that I could flatten the muster roll. This would allow me to align the text properly. I tested a few different methods, and fortunately the adhesive that was used on the tape was water-soluble. This meant that I could slowly dampen the tape and carefully peel it away. I did this in small segments, which revealed the text below and brighter paper. In some cases, it also revealed that the paper had broken along the fold line, which is probably why the tape was there in the first place. After all of the tape had been removed, these tears were repaired and detached fragments were returned to their proper places with thin Japanese paper and paste. In some cases where there were holes in the muster roll, I toned the Japanese paper so that the bright white paper would blend in better and be less distracting. Now that the conservation work is complete, you can still see in person quite clearly how much tape covered the document. Some areas were greatly masked, and I'm happy to have been able to make this document more legible and stable for our researchers. Now that the muster roll is repaired, it is available for public use and research here at Hill Memorial Library. You can find our reading room hours and access our catalog at lib.lsu.edu/special.